Welcome to another episode of Inspire People, Impact Lives. I'm your host, Josh Kosnick. And by trade, I'm a financial advisor in training, now a leader and managing partner at Northwestern Mutual. This week we have digital marketing expert Eagan Heath, CEO of Get Found Madison, joining us on the show. Eagan, you came highly recommended by Matt Pletzer. So really I want to thank Matt for introducing us. And I know you're helping a lot of local business owners with their digital marketing. But before we dig in, tell the audience a little bit about yourself. I know you told me pre-show, but let's tell our audience a little bit about your background, how you got into this.
Yeah, sure. So I came to Madison actually to work at Epic, and I was there for 5 years as a project manager. My specialty within that was the emergency room software. So I was traveling around implementing that for ERs all over the country, and really learned a lot about project management and consulting specifically. Obviously, as healthcare IT enterprise, it's much bigger, it's much different, but really kind of got the consulting bug and was pretty interested in that. I used to live in Minnesota, went to college out there and was bouncing around there working in nonprofits for a while. Actually worked at a great one called College Possible, which has a branch in Milwaukee, and it's helping low-income students get into college.
Oh, interesting.
So for a while, I was kind of on the path of, nonprofit and even education. I thought I was going to be a history professor at one point and really wanted to pay off my student loans and kind of get a taste of the for-profit world, and Epic was really my foray into that. So found them at a career fair in Minnesota, came here and really just learned a ton over 5 years. Sometimes it was very challenging for me, just kind of where I was at in life and just had never done anything like that. And it was, like I mentioned, I was sometimes traveling 6 months straight every week.
Yeah.
And just learned so much and was really inspired to kind of start my own consultancy on a much smaller scale. So that's kind of really where it came from. And I learned through podcasts and other blogs and things that SEO and digital marketing is a great thing to kind of get into. It's sort of, you could say maybe low barrier to entry, not a lot of startup costs per se, and a good way to quickly work for yourself.
Yeah, but you still had to take the risk to bet on yourself, because I imagine you're leaving a really good income at Epic that was stable. Now, granted, you were doing a lot of traveling, but then you're going to bet on yourself. And in between there, you didn't mention, so you got married right around...
It was actually after I started the business. Yeah.
Okay, so you got married after you started the business.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning, though, because my wife, Ann, was working at WPS when I left Epic, and I was able to get on her insurance for that year. So that was an important piece. She definitely supported and helped me.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the I was really obsessing over entrepreneurship before I went into it, and I'm sure that's probably the case for a lot of people. So one of the books I read when I was at Epic is called The Black Swan by Nassim Taleb. Yeah. And not directly about entrepreneurship per se, but it talks a lot about risk, talks a lot about the value that entrepreneurs create for the world.
Yeah, so what was it about entrepreneurship? So you go to college, you think you're going to be a history professor, right? Yeah. And then, which is a very narrow path, right? But then you get into nonprofit space, and then you go to Epic. So it's not necessarily the traditional path to entrepreneurship. It wasn't like something you fell in love with as a child or thought that you were ever going to do. Was there a tipping point for you that... Or was it just as you started reading and listening more that you were like, hey, maybe I should do that?
Yeah, for me, information is really kind of how I come to things and how I get inspired about things. So reading a lot, listening to a lot of podcasts. I'm sure you know the book, The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. Yep. Read that while I was at Epic, and that sounded pretty amazing. It's not really about working 4 hours a week, but it is about working for yourself and traveling the world and having a remote business that you can run from your laptop. And that sounded pretty amazing when I was staying in hotels and working late and things like that at hospitals. So I think that really, I caught the bug from there, and I got into listening to the Tropical MBA podcast. And there's this whole tribe of, digital nomads, people traveling the world, a lot of millennials and things, but older as well, who set up businesses that they can run anywhere in the world. So that really captured my imagination. And I think that was the start. It was kind of that combination of Nassim Taleb, the Black Swan. He talks about how, if the restaurants in your town are good, which they really are in Madison, it's a function of not just the great entrepreneurs, some of whom you've had on, who created the restaurants that succeeded. It's also about the people who failed. Yeah. Of that. Yeah. We get the benefit of those 9 out of 10 who fail. We need all 10 to try so that we can get the one that succeeds. And that was really interesting to me. Not that you want to be one of the people who fails, but you realize that's a piece of this broader ecosystem and chain of value creation for the world. That's
such a great point. In fact, I was just speaking to our interns this morning, and we got about 20 college financial reps this summer. So I'm speaking to them right before we get on this show. And it was interesting. We were talking about, look, they're figuring out this summer, and I was giving them kudos for taking the leap of looking at a commission stipend-based summer,
Sure.
And looking at this possibly as a long-term career and what that might look like. And it was fascinating because I was telling them, look, 95% of society, in America at least, is cut out to be an employee. And there's 5% of us that are cut out to be an entrepreneur in a sales or bet on yourself type environment, what I call the opportunity career. So it's like part of this is figuring out who you are, is because you may want to be an entrepreneur, but your hard wiring is to really be you may not be able to actually take that leap, or the risk might be too great for your personality, and the stress drives you right out of the business. Because there is so much failure, as we were talking about retention rates in our industry, or entrepreneurs, and even Epic, which is a corporate structure. Entrepreneurial can be a big risk, and it's whether or not you can stomach that risk or not.
Yeah. One of the things, I think it's kind of strange even to hear myself talk about, the Black Swan, like 9 out of 10 fail. Why would you want to do that? Why does that inspire you? One of the things he talks about is there's downside risk and there's upside risk. Yeah. And so when you do expose yourself to that potential failure, you also open yourself up to 2, 5, 10x success. That's a piece of it, and there's things you can do to limit your downside. And so for me, it was coming out of Epic, I had basically a year's worth of savings, so I had 12 months of runway is how I saw it. And to me, that was less risky than I need to be making an income in 3 months.
And that's okay, let's just say you did it the smart way.
Okay.
There's people such as myself that bet on myself without having anything in the bank.
Sure, and that's amazing too.
And you can sit there and go, I say it's the smart way for you, but there's some people that may have 12 months of runway, and they give themselves too much leeway. So the pressure, like there's a good stress, there's the dichotomy of stress. And for me, my back was against the wall. I had bills to pay, although they weren't as great as they are today. Yeah. I still had to produce. Otherwise, I wasn't going to make any money, and I wasn't going to be able to pay those bills. And all of a sudden I got creditors after me. So I say you did it the smart way because you did it financially. Sure. You were more financially astute than I was, I guess, at that point, which is ironic with the business I went into. But
that's good, though.
I want to get into your expertise and which helping business owners pay attention to digital marketing and building that out as a practice. And it was funny to talk a little bit about some of the older generation that you're working with, as well as the millennials, but. So I know digital marketing can seem a bit daunting to some business owners because it encompasses so many things. We have so many social media platforms, from Google, social media, Facebook, Instagram. Like they're literally targeting you for targeted dollars on all those how we go across. So even text messaging that we can get across, and I get reminders, confirmation reminders, or advertisements from the businesses I associate with. So I know that's out there as well, but I think it's important for business owners to pay attention. I believe that you do as well. So what we found really interesting is Chad and I were in Milwaukee last week for our annual meeting, and we got to hear Peter Diamanta speak. Okay. Do you know Peter?
I just know of him, yeah.
Okay. So we were shocked to hear this stat that in 2018, only 46% of the population had access to the internet, but by 2021, almost 60% worldwide.
Yeah.
But almost 60% by 2021 of the population will have access to internet, thanks to companies like the Virgin Group, SpaceX, Amazon, who are all launching satellites. And that number of connected users is only going to increase from there. So we think we're a global economy now. Just imagine by 2021 and then beyond how that's gonna come, which means huge opportunities for all business owners, right? So that being said, do you think that it levels the playing field for small business owners, or is it still a big corporate dollar game to win?
That's a great question. I think there's huge opportunities for small business owners, and that's a lot of who we work with. So absolutely on that. The challenge that you highlight is absolutely right. It's complex, and it feels complex. And I think there's also, it's not just that it's complex. I think people sense a whiff of snake oil as well, which is not to say there aren't people in the industry who are like that. I'm sure you run into the same thing in yours as well. So sometimes when I'm talking to older business owners who are used to what I call 20th century marketing, right? Of TV, radio, newspapers, maybe direct mail, things like that. There's equivalents in the online world now, and they have advantages. So that's a good place to start in general. So obviously for direct mail, it's like we've got email lists, like you take your newsletter, you make it digital, right? I would even say for the phone book, so one of our specialties at Get Found Madison is SEO and Google Ads. That's kind of where we cut our teeth, and that's what we're known for. And so when you really think about it, though, it's like, what did people used to look in the yellow pages for? Businesses, right?
Yeah.
And so getting that prominent spot, that big ad in the yellow pages, like
bold lettering.
Yeah, just you got to translate it. That's being on the top of Google now. That's what that is. And there's another element to Google as well, which is it's kind of like being on Main Street. And so if you're not on page one of Google, it's kind of like you're out in the boonies and no one's seen your retail location.
So search engine optimization, I know that term.
Okay, yeah.
What does that mean for everyone that may not know that term?
Yeah, and this is a great starting point for a lot of businesses, is basically, it's pretty normal to hire a freelancer or an agency or something to build your website, and then no one comes to it. We built the website, nobody came. Sometimes people spend a lot of money on websites that people don't find. They didn't think through that piece of what is someone doing on their smartphone, their tablet, or their desktop, or potentially even in the real world, that is going to then drive them to the website. So you need to think through that whole piece of how do we get to where people are and what they're doing. We know people are spending more and more time on their devices. And those activities in terms of checking email, going on social media, using a search engine, those are the heavy hitters. I would say YouTube is almost in its own category, but watching videos, things like that, it's like, how do we get where those people are and then bring them to the site? I do think of a website as a nexus, but to go back and answer your question, it's you specifically optimize your website for search engines, hence SEO, search engine optimization. So before you even lay out your pages, and it's okay if you already have a website and you haven't done this, you can kind of retroactively do it. You think through, how do people search for what I do? Mm-hmm. And that's a very interesting moment. That's a great way to get into marketing in general and digital marketing specifically. I would say marketing in general is the practice of thinking like your prospects and understanding what's going to resonate with them, right? So this is a great sort of almost like empathetic moment, and you do what's called keyword research. That's the first step in what we do for SEO. So we brainstorm ways that people might Google search for us. And actually, Bing is 1 in 5 searches in the US right now. It's pretty mind-blowing. A lot of people don't realize that.
I was actually going to ask that, is what percentage does Google dominate versus Bing or other search engines?
Google I can share the stats with you on this if you want to see the source. Google used to be above 80%. They've been in the mid-60s lately. And so Bing has really been coming back. And a lot of people say, who's using Bing? I think people that are using Bing don't necessarily know they're using Bing. No offense to them. I think it's the default on Windows machines. So if you're using Microsoft Edge, people used to use Internet Explorer. Alexa even uses Bing, I believe, by default. iPhones did for a minute there on Safari. I don't think they do now. So, and Bing has even been creeping up as I've watched it month by month. Sometimes we're getting up to 24%.
Wow.
So when you're optimizing for search engines, you're optimizing for both. But with the keyword research piece, you're thinking through what little, and this is kind of older school SEO, what little 2, 3, 4 word phrases are people going to type where they're looking for my products or services? And even that little switch is, to me, I do that all day, every day. In my team, we do that for clients. But some people have really not thought about that. And it's very normal in many industries. I'll just give one example, working with an attorney, and they kept talking about litigation. It's like, we do litigation. And it's like I watch legal dramas like everybody else, and I had to say, what is that again? They're like, that means going to court. I was like, okay, so like suing someone? They're like, yeah, that could be a thing. So I was like, let's compare the data. And so this is the amazing part. This is the thing we never had with the phone book. With the phone book, we kind of got a sense, it's good to have a big ad in there. We really want to be prominent when someone's looking for a plumber or whatever it is we do, or a litigation attorney, right? In Google, we can actually get the data. How many people a month, average per month, over the last 12 months, searched this phrase, this phrase, this phrase? And pretty soon we discover nobody's Googling for litigation attorney, but they are Googling for things like I need to sue somebody.
Yeah.
So
suing or whatever.
You're using that voice of customer. That's a whole thing in marketing, VOC, of the language that your customer uses. You actually need to build your website around that language. And so you need pages. If you have multiple services, each service page should really be speaking the language of what the customer or client does, because that's how they're going to find you. And then once you've got that data and you know kind of here's our targets, then we can optimize each page to make sure it's showing up appropriately. For a lot of small businesses, it's just the homepage, but they're kind of talking about their brand. They're talking about they were started in 1865 or whatever it is, but they're not talking about the things that people are looking for, the things they're Googling, and that's really a mistake.
Yeah, that's all really fascinating and really great advice. To surmise, I think that a lot of new business owners, as you said, will understand that, hey, we need a website.
Yep.
And that's step one. But okay, then step two is, why are people going to care? Why do people want to come to this website? How are we going to get people there? Mm-hmm. And that's where you and your team would come in.
That's right. And if you're in a competitive niche at all, you have more than 10 competitors in your area, right?
Yeah.
And so by default, there's only 10 or what we call organic spots or SEO rankings on Google. So if you're spot 11, you're out in the boonies. You're not on Main Street. And basically that very top spot and click-through rates is kind of what people call it, of what percent of the time do you show up that people click? Because Google has really won the search engine game and Bing has basically now copied their algorithm, most people click at the top. So it's about 30-ish% click the very top. And roughly, as you go down a spot, you're getting half as many clicks.
Yeah, what percentage actually even click to page 2?
Yeah, so page 2 has another 10 organic results on it, and those share in about 3 to 4% of the clicks.
Wow. So it's almost all page 1.
Yeah, you really got to be on page 1 to be on Main Street now, and those top 3 spots get 2/3 of the clicks. So really jockeying for those top 3 spots is important because that's what people see. More so all the time, over half of searches are now on mobile. And so on mobile, oftentimes the ads are at the very top. People say, I always skip the ads. That may or may not be true. By the way, when you run an ad on Google, you only pay if people click on it. So it's a different model than if you bought a radio ad, it's per 1,000 people you reach. If you bought a billboard, per 1,000 people you reach, they may never come to your website. On Google, you can bid to run ads at the top, and you only show for people who search for what you do, and you only pay if they click your website. It's a total revolution. Not everybody's caught up on that. And then below those spots are the organic results. So you can pay to have an ad at the top, and you can jockey to have your ads there with SEO.
So
your organic
click.
results. Yeah, so you can have pay-per-click ads at the top, a little Google ad. It's getting more and more innocuous all the time. The little word ad next to those listings is getting really small.
Yeah.
Those used to be off on the side on desktop. Now they're at the top. It used to be a little green word. Now it's just like a green outline of a box, so people can miss that they're even clicking on an ad. So it often makes sense to run pay-per-click ads at the top and do SEO so you're showing in the organic spots below.
So if every business knows this, well, maybe they don't, but let's just assume that they do for a minute. Mm-hmm. How do you get on page 1 if everyone's jockeying for that?
Yeah, that's a great
page 1
question.
spot.
And this is one that I try. I've kind of come up with some of my own language to describe it to some business owners, because we're talking to painters and landscapers and things like that. People who are in the trades that don't necessarily think about this every day, so it's very normal,
Right.
Let's assume you've done all that. You've researched the keywords. You've figured out the exact phrases. People want to sue people. They don't want a litigation attorney, right? You've built a service page all around that, ideally with 300 to 500 words on it. I like to include, if you look at Get Found Madison's website, I like to have a video on every page of me just kind of talking.
Yep.
It's an embedded YouTube video, and I've got captions uploaded for them. And because Google owns YouTube, I'm pretty sure Google's indexing what you're saying in the video as well. So if you give them a lot of words, it's not just a paragraph and a bunch of images. You give Google something to chew on, and Bing too. They're indexing and crawling the web, and they understand this is what this page is about. When there's 300 to 500 words on it, they've got a little more to work with. So then you've optimized the page or the site for that phrase. What if everybody else did that too? I think that's what you're asking. That's kind of what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
So I would say that is now table stakes. And this is where it gets a little tricky, because if everyone does that same amount of optimizing for search engines, then we're all kind of even, right? So what becomes the differentiator? It's pretty interesting. The reason we use Google now is because, and we don't use Alta Vista or Lycos, or usually not Yahoo. Actually, Yahoo's at around 11 to 12% again, which is pretty interesting. But those old search engines, in the late 90s that people were using when Google overtook, what Google figured out is that it's interesting. They copied what scientists and academic researchers do. So in general, an academic study is good if a lot of other academic studies cite it. Pretty interesting, right? So they did the same thing with the web, and they said, if a website is getting linked to by a lot of other websites, that must be a valuable website. It's a little more complicated than that, but that's the gist of it. So it's in the same sense of when you hire somebody, you're probably checking their references. They say they're great for the job. I want to know what other people say.
Yep.
It's the same deal. You built a website. I'm sure you think you're great and you deserve to be at the top of Google. Do other sites link to you?
Right.
So that becomes the ongoing work. I say for Get Found Madison, we're an SEO agency. We try to rank at the top for search engine, SEO company Madison. We really work on ranking well for those, and we get a lot of business that way. So it's important to us to be at the top so people can see we eat our own cooking, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things we do is we work on earning links from other websites month in and month out. That part never ends. It's like when you're playing King of the Hill, you got to be vigilant, right? So that becomes this whole strategy of how are we blogging? What are we blogging about? Are we going on podcasts? Are we getting referenced on other people's blogs? Are we guest blogging? Things like that. A big one that I found is I speak to reporters and I get quoted as an authority on SEO or digital marketing or something, and then they link to our site. So I'm doing this like PR kind of outreach to make sure that other websites are always adding links to getfoundmadison.com.
And what I'm also hearing is that you're doing a lot of things that maybe others wouldn't be willing to do or don't want to do.
Yeah, and that's, I'm sure you agree. When you find something hard in business, it's good to do that because other people aren't doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, so I always talk about with our business, it's not easy, it's hard, but it is simple. And a lot of times people confuse those terms.
Yes.
Because they think simple and easy are the same things, or hard and difficult are the same things, and they're not. So what I talk about is that our business isn't rocket science. In fact, most people can do it. I joke that I don't have a college degree and I made it to the top, but it is simple. If you can just habitually do the hard things, you'll be very successful.
Yeah, that's well put. Google looks at 200 factors when they figure out how do they rank people, and that's a lot of factors, but really there's a small handful of important ones. So I try to break it down as simply as I can. I say, you research keywords, you figure out how people are searching for you, you optimize specific pages for those specific phrases, right? I really think businesses do need to blog, and it's best if it's business.com/blog. That's just my take. So WordPress does this really well. WordPress was built as a blogging platform. I'm friendly with my competitors in town, and we all say WordPress is the way to go. And so if you're blogging, you're sharing your expertise, you're potentially ranking for other phrases, even nationally. So even though we work with a lot of local organizations, we rank for some phrases. Like if you Google for Google review template, local SEO checklist, things like that, will come up on the first page, and we're getting traffic from California and even other countries and things like that. And that's good because Google sees that. Google owns the Chrome browser. Google has Google Analytics running on most websites. Google sees when someone clicks to your site and hangs around and reads a blog for a few minutes. They have that data. So that shows that your website is valuable. Plus, if you're blogging, you've got a reason for people to link to you. Nobody wants to link to my Google AdWords service page, but they might link to my homepage if it's like I'm getting quoted in an article, or they might link to one of our blog resources. So it all kind of fits in. So keyword research, website optimization itself, and you're about 30% of the way there once you've done that. And then the long game is blogging and earning links.
Google's listening to us right now as we speak.
That's right. They're definitely figuring out how do we index podcasts, and there's already some indications that podcasts are, sometimes you do a search on Google and you see kind of a rich snippet at the top or rich results. It might just answer your question. It might tell you how to start cooking the recipe or whatever it is. That's pulling directly from websites, and we call that position 0. It's at the very top. And so Google's figuring out, obviously you see YouTube sometimes, videos showing on Google results, and we're going to be seeing podcasts showing up as well.
Yeah, and I've noticed that, I don't know, I want to say it's more recent than has been a long-term thing for Google, but seeing whether it's a recipe or a YouTube video on how to, if you start with how to and then let's say build a cabinet or whatever it may be, there's like that, what you said, that position 0 YouTube videos or whatever it might be pop up right away. You're like, oh, and it's highly useful almost all the time. That first one is like the most useful one. Yeah.
So there's subspecialties within search engine optimization, and there's kind of this whole world now in the SEO kind of podcast and blogging space about how do you optimize for that featured snippet. And there's things you do right in how you blog that Google can easily grab. If you've got headlines that say step 1, step 2, step 3, they can easily grab that out and put you in spot 0. There's a little bit of debate about, is it good to be there because are people even clicking to my website? But as you'll see, there's usually 8 steps and they show you the first 3. So a lot of you get a lot of click-throughs.
You click the read more.
Yep.
To see the rest of it if those first 3 steps intrigue you.
Yeah. So the general thought is structure your web content so Google eats it up and serves it up. And sometimes you can skip to that featured spot even when you're spot 4 or 5.
Yeah. That's really cool. So obviously I think we know the answer here, but I think it bears asking. Is digital marketing more cost effective than what traditional marketing? And is that true? I guess we'll go to a subset of this. So, is that true for all business at this point?
Yeah, that's a really great question. As with anything as a consultant, you got to say it depends, but here are some advantages. And so I talked a little bit about, think about the 20th century advertising and marketing, and then the 21st century corollaries and kind of what we're doing now, right? And then why do we want to make the switch if we haven't yet? So a big reason is targeting, and another reason is measurement. And then cost, I would say, would be the third reason. So in terms of targeting, I'll just talk briefly about that. And this is something I learned actually when I worked at Epic, is you learn the nuts and bolts of what the software can do, and then you can kind of get big picture strategies. So you're really at this low tactical level, and then you're like, wow, we could build whole strategies around that. So right now on Google, because of, again, we talked about Chrome, Google Analytics, the Google search engine, everything like that, Android phones as well. Google knows what people have been searching. Google knows what people have been browsing. So Google has this whole category called in-market audiences. And there's actually one for SEO and SEM services. Search engine marketing is another word for running Google ads. Mm-hmm. And so I can just run YouTube, because Google owns YouTube. I can run YouTube ads to people who are in the market for an SEO agency. I can run Google display ads or banner ads all over the web. They're showing up on ESPN, New York Times, whatever. And they only show up to people who recently searched for my services. So it's like, think of how much it would cost you to run an ad in the New York Times or CNN or whatever, and then think, actually, I can only show it to people who are looking for what I offer, and I only pay if they click to the site. And sometimes those kind of ads can be well under $1 a click. And so the last piece comes to the measurement then, and as we work our way to cost here, what we do is we set up special code on websites. So if people fill out your contact form, we've even figured out a way to track, if you see a phone number on your smartphone, you click it with your thumb and it just calls. Yeah. We can track if people do that. If people click to email you, we can track all that. And the importance of that is you can then get to this important number. So at the very top, you have impressions. How many times did my ad show on Google?
Yep.
The next level is clicks. And that's when you pay now. You used to pay with impressions. Just your ad showed, on TV, you paid for that. Now you only pay for clicks to the website, which is a huge revolution. So that's driving some cost savings. And then that last piece, if you put in the special code on your site, it's called conversion tracking. You then say, what is our cost per lead? And that's a really important number. There's a few other pieces there. So in a service business, how many leads does it take to close a sale? I don't know that number. The sales department needs to know that. We need to pull that out of the CRM or the customer relationship management software, or we need to start tracking to figure it out. But what we deliver to clients and what we talk about is basically, we're going to measure your cost per lead, and if it's too high, we're going to work on getting it down. So before you do all this, you don't necessarily know, but you can go by some rough estimates.
So you don't actually know what the cost is going to be until you actually go through with the plan.
You won't know what your cost per lead is exactly until you do it. But you can have
you have some data.
Yeah, you can have some guesstimates. I tell people right now in Google Ads, unless it's a very competitive niche like law, law pays $20 to $30 a click. Lawyers do, which is extremely expensive.
Well, it's because there's way too many lawyers.
Yeah, that's part of the problem, right? Yeah, but for let's again go back to a plumber or some service business like that, you might pay $2 to $5 a click. And if you run ads on Facebook, you may pay $1 a click. And so you think about, okay, if it's $1 a click and I pay to get 100 people to the website for $100, how many leads or sales do I need out of that? And those are the pieces you can measure. So you can get to better targeting, right? You can pay at a better moment. You can pay when they actually go to your website instead of just for ad impressions. And then you can measure, what did I get out of it? And then you can spin the wheel. So once it's working, it might make sense to pour more money into it and spend more on ads, because that's the biggest bang for your buck.
So talk about money. Mm-hmm. What should businesses expect or should they put towards either marketing or digital marketing as far as budget's concerned as they go in? So we're in the back half of the year now. Yep. People are going to start budget planning for next year. if they're running a calendar year, fiscal year. What would you suggest for digital marketing or marketing as a whole as a percentage of their budget?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's really going to depend by industry, and that's going to depend because what are their margins and how competitive is their niche really. But I think thinking about 10 to 20% of revenue on marketing is not crazy. For a big company, that's not crazy. For a small company, that might feel a little crazy. So do what makes sense. But I think for a small local business, can you do a couple $1,000 a month? Start there. You don't have to start big, but you can start with the high leverage pieces. And for me, that's often Google. Let's buy clicks on Google. We run ads on Bing as well, Bing ads. And so if we're paying a few bucks a click to get people to our site who are actively looking for what we do, that's a pretty good bet. As I would take that bet any day over, I'm going to run a billboard. I don't know what's going to happen. And
you really don't.
Yeah.
And that's really hard for data, right? Mm-hmm. To have something like that or something.
We call that attribution.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So with the digital marketing side of things, we've talked a lot about Google and Bing. Mm-hmm. What about on the social media side? And I've heard a lot reference, and I don't know if that's just because of what I'm searching or what I'm looking at, but I've heard a lot about ClickFunnels.
Okay.
And is that related to just social media, or is that partly verbiage for Google and Bing as well, or what's that mean?
Yeah, that's great. I'm happy you asked about that. I actually purchased ClickFunnels recently, and I've been using it, so I'm happy to talk about that. And I'm a big fan too. So let me start with the social media piece of it. And something I want to say that I think is probably pretty important for probably some folks in your audience who don't necessarily know. I'm guessing most people are pretty savvy with social media marketing, but
let's assume not.
Okay,
just
supposing they were not. A thing I see a lot, and even I hear as I go to marketing events around town and to marketing conferences, here's what people think social media marketing is, and I have a little bit of a polemical take on it, so I'll say what I think about that afterward. So I think what a lot of people think social media marketing is we're a restaurant, we're posting pictures of our food, which is great. That's not a bad thing to do. But basically, we're on Facebook, we're doing organic posts, meaning we're not paying anything, we're just adding it to our page. We're encouraging people to like and follow us. And, we might have little videos here and there. That'd be great. You'd be a high achiever if you're doing video, right? Particularly those little Instagram stories, the videos on mobile and things like that. That's great. I really think in the case of Facebook in particular, it's pay to play, and it has been for years. So that strategy of I'm going to put out, sometimes it's breaking my heart because sometimes people are doing 2 to 3 posts a day on Facebook and nobody is seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
So Facebook has built this huge machine, and they've been ready to monetize it for a couple of years, and they have been. And the way they do it is ads. So their algorithm's changing all the time in terms of what's getting shown in the feed, what are people seeing when they log into Facebook. But in general, so let's say you have 1,000 followers of your Facebook page, right?
Yep.
Something like 30 of them would see your post. So it's not like an email list. You're not really building an asset that you own. It's pay to play. Now, you go a long ways if you start boosting those posts or at least putting some money into them. The next level is really running ads. And so when clients come to us and say, or prospects come to us and say, hey, we want to do some social media marketing, I kind of have to give this little spiel and say, just to be clear, we're not going to take over your business page and post 3 times a day. We're going to set up an ad account, a proper ads manager account, and we're going to run some ads for you. And then that gets into the ClickFunnels piece. So the targeting, and just to be clear on the ads, is people don't have to like your page. The targeting is just incredible. As you can imagine, just like we talked about the data Google has, if they know your search and browsing history, Facebook's got basically your interests, your friend group, your demographics, your geography, and then your web browsing history as well, because they've got code called the Facebook Pixel that's running on millions of websites. So when you go to shop for some shoes and you leave the web page and you start seeing them everywhere, that's remarketing, and that's because of that code that's running. Mm-hmm. So you can, when you take a big step up when you say we're going to run Facebook ads, we're not going to do organic Facebook posts, or we're not just going to rely on organic Facebook posts to bring in business, because now we're really in an economical sort of arrangement, because that cost per 1,000 is somewhere around $12 to $15 right now, as I'm seeing it. So that means you're getting 1,000 views on your ad for $12 to $15. So when you're spending a couple hundred, a couple $1,000s,
You can go pretty far.
you're reaching a lot of people, or you're reaching people quite a few times. In marketing, we talk about the rule of 7. People need to see something more than once. So when they come to your website and leave, you don't want that to be the end of the story. You want to get them on your email list. You want to get them ideally in your remarketing funnel like we're talking about, and continue to provide value to bring them back. So the theory, so ClickFunnels is this software. You could almost compare it to like Infusionsoft or other marketing automation software. And the idea is you don't just need a website, you need a funnel. You need a plan of how do we get people from, problem aware at the very top of the funnel to maybe looking for a provider, to choosing among providers, to buying. And so what you can do is offer something for free.
Yeah.
And that's something I really like about marketing is you're not just out there to push things that people don't want to buy. Your job as a marketer, and I get this from Seth Godin, he says, if you have a great product or service, it's your obligation to get it out there in the world. So the people who can benefit from it, they need to know about it, and you need to be convincing about it, right? Yeah. So what you do with a free gift is it's a free guide, it's a free video series, it's a series of emails, whatever it is. The questions that people ask you all the time, you can answer them in this format, and all they have to do is opt in with their email. And that's a huge step up. If you just have a contact form on your website and you're hoping people click over to it from your service page, an average conversion rate on that is 0.5% to 1%, give or take, for a local service business like that. Versus, so we've now got a ClickFunnels funnel running right now about our local SEO checklist. So people want to download kind of the same checklist we use to help rank client websites on Google. All they have to do is put in their name and email, and they get access to that. Now, on the second page, there's an upsell. Hey, do you want to buy my $97 SEO course? And people can leave and opt out at that point. But either way, we've got the email. We can continue communicating with them.
It's a drip list, essentially.
The drip marketing piece. Yeah. And this is very early days for me. We just built this and launched it. I'm seeing a 40% opt-in rate on that page.
Wow.
Yeah. And then some people are buying the course on the other end too. And plus, we're growing the email list. So that's the idea behind a marketing funnel. And that's really Web 3.0, I would say. Wherever we're at, that's the next level. That's what's going to run circles around websites, and you can build that into WordPress. We're looking into how do we do that with the special themes and things like that. But you don't just say, "Hey, here's what we do. Here's all about us. Call us when you're ready." You have to kind of meet people where they're at, and if they're still in the research and education phase, you wanna get them on your list.
Yeah, well, and some of what you're doing today is you're giving away some of your intellectual capital for our listeners, in hopes that A, it's giving back, and B, you're hoping that you can get your brand out there even further. So that's a lot of what you're saying with giving something away for free is you are giving something away for free that's your intellectual capital that technically someone could pay you for, but you're putting it out there so that they feel that they've received some value from you in hopes that they want more value from you in return.
Yeah, thank you for highlighting that, because I think that's an often missed piece. This is not just like some crappy little PDF you slop together. Like it should be so good people are confused why it's free. That's how good your initial opening offer should be.
That's great advice. So good that people are confused as to why it's free.
Yeah.
So where they actually go, wait, this is too good to be true, right?
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. So the founder, Russell Brunson, who started ClickFunnels, he's got a great book called .com Secrets, which is a great way to learn more about this. And if you go to the website, .com Secrets, you'll see one of these funnels in action because they use their own tool. He's got a little video sales letter. He talks about what's in the book, and he sends you the book for free plus shipping. And so you pay the $8 shipping, and then after you put in your info, you go to the next page, and it's got this special functionality where it's like, hey, do you want to go to the next offer? So you do a quick upsell, just like you might in one-to-one sales.
Or telemarketing.
Yeah.
But wait, there's more.
Yeah. Or do you want fries with that kind of thing? It's cross-selling and upselling you can do immediately in an automated way. And it's no longer just one-to-one. It can be one-to-many with a tool like ClickFunnels. So that whole piece, the thing that I really, really got out of .com Secrets that really got me on this journey was he talks about, it's almost like you can picture a set of stairs, or like your value ladder, right? And so ideally, if you're a good business, people pay you money and they get more value than they paid you. That's how you stay in business, by providing good value, right? The value's up here, the price is down here. But what you need is people to start experiencing your value before they ever send you any money. And then when they want some more of your value, then we go up to a little step, and then we go up a step, then we go up a step. So for us right now, that's online courses. So it might be free talks, free videos and things at the very bottom. You get value for free, right? But you don't have to pay anything. You don't have to put in your email. You want to take it to the next level, we have webinars and private talks and things like that and online courses, and then you're going up a step. And then we have projects we work with people on, and then we do longer retainers. And then potentially, like, we could be somebody's like consultant chief marketing officer or marketing department, and you have to keep providing value along the way, and every single business has an opportunity to do this. So build out those $0 cost products really strategically, and that gets people on your value ladder.
That's great. That is awesome. And so the intellectual capacity given away free, what would you say to the skeptic in there that says, well, I can't just give that away free. What if they don't ever want to use me?
Yeah, so it is true that the majority of people on your list. So what's interesting with these digital marketing pieces is you're building assets in your business. You're building funnels. You're building your email list over time, ideally, your newsletter list, right? And then you're building SEO equity in your website, and that's part of what those are assets. They're not hard assets like a physical business, but you almost need to think of them like that. So in terms of the skepticism on it, most of the people on your list won't buy. Most of the people who watch your webinar won't buy, but you don't need everyone to. You just need the numbers to work out. You just need the value that you get on the other end of your webinar or your free offering to pay for the ads and more.
That's great. So I want to switch gears a little bit, and it's not too far off, but anyhow, so our small business owners that are looking potentially to hire their first digital marketing person, what are some characteristics they should look for?
That's a good question. One of the things that we try to practice is just practicing what we preach. I think I learned that from reading some Warren Buffett stuff, actually. Yeah. He talks about we eat our own cooking, we're invested in our own fund and things like that.
Yeah.
You try to do that, and you try to practice what you preach. And so, do people discover us through digital marketing? That's a big one. So that works well for us. I think it's more than fair enough to ask, to check their reviews, and to ask who have you worked with, who can I talk to, and to reach out. I've had people reach out to previous clients that they found through Google reviews, and that was a really good way for them to verify.
Good.
So
what questions should they be asking? Because I know you have competitors here in town as well. So if someone's in the market and they're looking at you guys or other competitors, whatever it may be, what do you think they should be asking to understand if Eagan and his team or Joe Blow down the street is the right person to use?
Yeah, that's great. I think one thing that throws people off a little bit is when I get into sales conversation with people, I do ask about revenue and margins, and that can be a little alarming sometimes for people, so I have to ease into that. But the reason I ask about that is because it needs to make financial sense. Here's what we're going to invest per month. Here's what our budget is, with both the consultant and the ads piece. You need to kind of think about both of those pieces. And then how much, I think a business owner really wants to know that number. How much can I pay per lead? How much can I pay per sale? And kind of ask that question of how will you measure what you do? What time frame can you get me there? And how will we measure the results in review? Because there's uncertainty around all these pieces. Yep. One of the things we found, I've been doing this for 3 years now full time, is we were getting brought in to bring people to a website from Google, but we didn't always have control of the website. And so that other piece is called conversion optimization. How do you get people on the website actually opting in, giving their email, giving their contact info, calling you? So we've sort of moved into taking, helping with the website piece or the funnel piece to ensure that we're getting people to the website and they're opting in. And so I think that piece is really important to just know, here's how, and a lot of people don't know that number. What's an acceptable cost per sale? What's an acceptable cost per lead? And is this realistic to get here? Have you done this for other clients before or similar clients? And what kind of timeline can I expect, and how are we going to measure the results? The whole point of doing digital marketing, or one of the big reasons, is that we know what happened after we ran the ads. And so that
you have the analytics.
Yeah, we really focus on the analytics piece, and we say you got to set up your pixel. We got to help you set up your pixel and set up the conversion tracking before we ever run a blessed ad, because we want to know the results. This isn't branding. This is direct response. Right.
So I think you answered some of this, but what specific skills should someone have when looking at hiring a marketing person or a team? Or, let's take that two ways. Someone they're going to hire as a marketing person on their team.
Sure, in-house.
Or, in-house versus going with a consultant.
Yeah, this is where it gets tricky, and I don't know if everyone will like this answer. I think you need to know at least the basics. You need to know what's possible, what's realistic. Maybe you've tried it yourself a little bit so you understand what's going on. If you have no idea and you've never done this, I think you're not in a good position to gauge if someone's doing a good job of running your marketing. And I just, it's like, as long as I'm running this business and other businesses, I'm always going to see myself as head of marketing. I think that's, for me, that's just so important to understand. And then other people can do the tactical day-to-day things. But you've got to have some sense of what's a normal cost per click on Google? What's a normal conversion rate? Some people are coming in thinking, 25% of our website visitors opt in. It's like, you check the analytics. It's like, one, you're not measuring it. Most people don't have custom goals set up. You can't just throw the code on your site. You got to customize it, right? And so once you start measuring it, you're like, no, it's actually 0.5% conversion rate. That means you need 200 people to your site to get a lead. And so setting those expectations around that and just in understanding those expectations, I think is really important. It's tricky because there's a piece of strategy of when do we use LinkedIn, when do we use Google, when do we use YouTube, Facebook, etc. And we're doing more and more guidance around that. And sometimes people come to us saying, we need SEO. And I say, you have a new product. No one's ever heard of it. No one's Googling it. You got to generate some demand on Facebook or YouTube or somewhere else. So there's like strategy components there. I know I'm not giving a very concise answer
fine.
to what you're asking. I think that you need to understand what each channel is for and just kind of what metrics are fair in terms of, are you going to measure how many leads or sales we get? That should be a non-negotiable in my opinion. And how do you work? What are you doing day to day to make sure that's happening?
Yeah, there's no right or wrong answer on my show.
Sure.
It's how you take the question, because that's the gift we want to give the audience is your take on things, and then how they take that from there. And maybe they have further questions, they can reach out to you.
Yeah, I teach a digital marketing training course, and when I launched it, I really geared it toward entrepreneurs and marketing teams, and that's mostly who's in it. But I've also had business owners come and take it, and then they say they better understand the value of what an agency like ours does, or they just understand what they should have their people doing. So even getting an overview, we have I can share a link that I think I shared with you guys. What's possible in digital marketing, and then you just understand at a high level what's possible and which way might we want to go. And just having an overview like that, spending an hour on a video like that, I think could save you a lot of money.
And that's offered through the Dream Bank, right?
Yeah, so I do an in-person course at the Dream Bank, and we also have an online course as well.
And how often is that offered, where people, if they listen to this, say next week, the week after, when can they get to you or to that course?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've got it, as I've set it up right now, I kind of open enrollment and then do a 12-month course. So the next one would probably be in the spring, though I could be persuaded to do another,
depending on what the interest is.
Yeah, potentially. Otherwise, we do have online resources. I've got over 16 and a half hours of video course recorded for people who want to learn digital marketing step by step.
Perfect. So I told you before we're going to play a little word association game.
Right.
So remember, I'm going to say one word. You have the choice of saying one word or one short phrase back to me based on what first comes to head.
Okay.
And then we can't repeat words. Like taboo. You brought up taboo.
That's right, like the board game taboo.
So, all right, future.
Like an entrepreneur should look forward thinking that it's going to be brighter than the past.
Attention.
I think that's our most valuable resource, and we need to be very clear about it. Am I playing correctly?
You're putting context to the words, which is fine. Let's go.
I shouldn't refer to it as a pronoun then. Okay, let's try it again. Here we go.
Emotion.
Most people do not buy from logic. It's what's in the heart that will determine whether they're ready to buy or not.
Money.
I think about the sorts of freedom a person can have when they're not concerned about paying their bills.
So freedom, I'm going to go with as the word there.
Yes.
All right. So let's go to something you're familiar with, Google.
Google. It's a complicated one.
That's why I thought it'd be interesting.
Yeah.
What first comes to mind, Google?
Yeah. Organizing the world's information and making it quickly accessible. That's a very positive take, and most people would not agree with that. But
no,
I think it's been a net benefit.
There's no one else in the room to judge you right now.
All right.
So. Trust.
If you want to speed up your marketing and business transactions, you need to be able to look each other in the eye.
Stephen Covey, speed of trust.
That's right.
All right. 2 of my favorite words: inspire.
I think ultimately what we're here to do.
Impact.
I think for entrepreneurs, that's what they should be working toward.
Awesome. So how can our audience get in touch with you?
Right. Yeah. Thanks for asking. You can definitely check out our website, getfoundmadison.com. Otherwise, email is the best way to get a hold of me. I'm Eagan, Eagan, at getfoundmadison.com.
Awesome. And then favorite book of all time or most recently read you want the audience to know about?
All right. I really do recommend, this is not for everybody, but I really do like The Black Swan by Nassim Taleb. If you're looking for great marketing advice, I do say .com Secrets by Russell Brunson.
Well, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show. I think everyone will get some great nuggets out of it, and I really appreciate you sharing some of your intellectual capital. You went in pretty deep on stuff I know that you get paid to do, so I really appreciate that.
You bet. Thank you so much for having me on. It's been great.
You bet.